Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Talking Politics. I'm Hassan Zafar, and we have with us Samson Salman Sharif Sahab. He is an authority on Pakistan's Afghan policy. We normally record this interview, but today we have decided to publish it live because of the urgency of the matter as the things are changing very fast. It's a fluid situation between Afghanistan and Pakistan ever since the terrorist, terrorist attack took place on Pakistani soil by the TTP militants. Samson Saab, thank you so much. You have been involved with the Pakistan's Afghan policy since the mid 90s or the early 90s when Benazir Bhutto Sahiba was in power and Major General Nasirullah Babar Sahab was also there. And you collaborated with them and you also wrote your memoirs about the Afghan policy, and you were very much involved in the whole uh, affair when the American invasion took place in 2001. So well, let's begin by talking about Doha 1 and Doha 2. Doha 1, which took place when Taliban came into power in 2021, and Doha 2, the talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which have been taking place yesterday in Doha. So I think it's a good comparison if we look at these two events together and try to make sense out of it.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Hassan Zafar. We are going to talk real history, a history which is eclipsed from the people of Pakistan and in the world. But whatever I am saying, it's not conjuncture. It will be hard facts of history. And I've drawn most of my conclusions from the events. It's not based on empiricism, it's based on facts of history. Pakistan had a long association with the Afghan conflict to accrue Pakistan's strategic advantages beginning 1973. The policy that we followed from 1973 till 2007 was ultimately abandoned. This policy was basically framed by two people. The late Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and his IGFC and later on Interior Minister Major General Nasirullah Babar. That is when they picked up student leaders from Afghanistan and they brought them to Pakistan in Peshawar and Pabbi in Charat and started giving them training. These included Kulbuddin Hikmatyar, Ahmad Shah Massood, Yunus Khalis, Rashid Dostum, all these people. And they were trained here in Pakistan. And then they went back to the universities and everywhere. And Rabbani was also one of them. They went back and then they started a student counter-revolutionary movement in Afghanistan against Sardar Daud. And Sardar Daud was brought to knees. He agreed to sign an agreement in Pakistan, ratified during line, but then Bhutto went. He was removed in a military coup and later on he was hanged and died in the gallows. That was the first phase where this policy ended. The second phase where it ended was when President Ziaul Haq was blown up. The third phase where it ended was when Prime Minister Janejo, the architect of the Geneva Accords, pre-1985 was it, he was removed as a Prime Minister. The next phase came in 96 when Benazir Bhutto was removed because she had nearly signed a similar accord with the Afghan Taliban and bringing all factions of Afghanistan into peace. And just weeks before it was to be ratified and signed, she was removed in a silent coup President Lagari. And then comes President Musharraf. He also goes, he was following a very aggressive dual policy with the America, keeping his interest and Pakistan's interest alive. But after he went, things changed. Now coming over to the Doha talks, Doha one. It began in 2001 and lasted till 2021. Uh, Pakistan was very active in this initiative in 2001, and everyone was going to Doha, and that is where the Afghan Taliban and the emissaries were meeting the Americans, and other Saudis were involved. So all this was happening. Pakistan also had a role, but it wasn't a very significant role because once the 2001 negotiations began in Doha, Pakistan started losing the grip on the Afghan Taliban. And then the Afghan Taliban concluded the agreement with lots of secret annexures, which we don't know. And this is where we can conjecture that there was some sort of agreement between them. Because the ease with which USA was able to withdraw from Afghanistan and from Bagram and everywhere, there was no violence, and Taliban very quietly took over. Now, one distinct thing of point about Doha One was that the Afghan National Army and the Afghan national government under Ashraf Ghani, and before that the other Prime Minister and President of Afghanistan, they were sidelined. They even boycotted, and there's a lot of diplomacy going on, but it was all a fixed match. So they were completely not part of the Doha One agreement, and they were the government in power, strangely, and no one was consulting them. So this is how it ended. It was also there was a parallel negotiation also going on in Oslo in Norway. In peace initiatives, historically Norway's played a very positive role. So they were also involved in this. And concurrently in Pakistan, what was happening? Now, I leave it to your imagination what all happened in Pakistan between 2000 and 2007 until now. One is sure, abandonment of the Afghan policy, which had been built over a lot of sacrifices from 1973 till 2007. It started back rolling. Pakistan started packing its bags as far as Afghanistan, washing its hands off them. It was one distinct.
This is very, very interesting. Very
And in
interesting. For our audience, I would like to just highlight what you have just said, that whenever a major shift takes place in the Afghan policy, something extraordinary happens in Pakistan.
Please say it again.
Whenever there's a major shift in Afghan policy or in the United States Afghan policy, something extraordinary happens in Pakistan.
It has always happened. It has always happened. It's not the first time.
Right.
Even the regime change in 2022, I must say Imran Khan was very naive in understanding the deeper contours of Pakistan's power structure. The type of people he had around him had been placed over there. So they also misled him, whatever. So, yes, indeed. But what is important is what was happening in parallel in Pakistan. One was washing their hands off Afghanistan very progressively, giving the people an impression we have control. Mullah brother, this and that, people getting killed near the Pakistan-Iran border. All this was a sideshow which was taking place all the time. There was a regime change in Pakistan. Musharraf went because he would not have succumbed to this pressure. Then there was a charter of democracy between two major political parties, drafted abroad. Then there was the NRO 1, NRO 2, and we can say now since last year's election, we are into another 3. So it's a continuation. People have been excluded here, and in case of Afghanistan, the government and the army were excluded. So these policies are working in tandem, and once they're working in tandem, it means that the devil's triangle, the corner of the devil's triangle in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, even extending up to China, is very, very hot right now. This is as far as uh, the Doha 1 is concerned. It did no good to Pakistan. Parentis, comma, full stop, close.
So where does India come into this picture when you talk about Devil's Triangle and the developments that are taking place in Afghanistan and the Indian footprint in Afghanistan during the American invasion, the 20 years, 2001 to 21, their consulates operating next to Pakistan border and all that. Where does India figure into this Devil's Triangle?
I had told you earlier about India and the Devil's Triangle. Indeed, India, to a large extent, does not follow the politics of the West and the East, the power blocks, or North and the South. That is why they remain non-aligned. For a long time, even now, on paper, India is still a non-aligned country. And they accrued the best advantages from Soviet Union, Russia, and also from the United States, especially as far as the nuclear agreement, which is yet to be ratified, is concerned, the civilian nuclear agreement. They've made the best of both. Even now, India in Doha 1 made the best of both. They garnered, they built their contacts with the Afghan Taliban. They had their connections even then. They had a big presence in Afghanistan, and the Afghan government under Karzai and Ashraf Ghani provided them all the facilities to have those areas. They carried out a lot of development in Afghanistan. They had so many listening posts, and I'm sure there are still so many listening post operative in Afghanistan, Indian listening posts. So where is China? Where is India? India is very much in the game. Recently, when the Indian foreign minister visited, it's quite visible. So India is not out of the game. Whatever President Trump may say, India is very much in the game. And I think whatever this tussle is going on in utilizing Afghanistan for a strategic purpose, when I come to Doha, I'll tell you what is that purpose. And keeping Pakistan neutralized, because Pakistan has got nuclear weapons, keeping Pakistan weak, keeping Pakistan pliant. All this is in tandem. The major advantage and beneficiary will be India. There's a third parallel to this. So I told you about Afghanistan and Pakistan. There's a third one. Why hasn't Pakistan economically taken off in the past 70 years? There was the decade of progress in 60s. We were manufacturing parts for NASA. We were manufacturing parts for Boeing. We were sending rockets into space to help NASA. We handed over our scientists to NASA, who took active part in the Apollo programs. So a nation with so much of talent, it was a newborn nation at that time in the 60s. Why can't it take off? Because it is not in the roadmap of the Western powers, United States of America, to allow Pakistan to take off. So whenever it happens, it starts and then it fizzles out, because the policy that is followed, the implementation framework of those projects which can really give a jump start to Pakistan. So much wrong takes place in them. The agriculture revolution went back, failed because of the intervention of the ammunition mafia of Second World War, fertilizers and chemicals. Uh, the IPP was showcased world over as an outstanding innovation by Pakistan. What happened in the early 90s and late 90s, IPP was, the buzzword, Pakistan has done it. Now, what has happened? IPP is a plug on Pakistan's economy. So, you saw the Pakistan's telecom revolution, it fizzled away. You saw the internet revolution in Pakistan, it fizzled out. It's oxygen starved right now. So whatever big things that we like to do in the future, like mining, like cryptocurrency, इस तरह की जो बातें हो रही हैं, I don't think they will. If past as presidents, they will not take off. Not because we as Pakistanis are not capable, but because it will be led into a direction of nowhere. It will go into a wilderness. So ये भी in tandem चला है शुरू से पाकिस्तान के साथ. It has happened. And if you remember the agreements which Ayub signed with the Americans, and we joined Santo and Baghdad, I do not know उसमें कितने hidden annexures थे, लेकिन Brigadier Mia Mahmood was 97 years old, and whose helicopters used to bring the Afghan students from Afghanistan, Pabbi and Charat, वो ये बताते हैं कि उसमें अनस्टिंटेड सपोर्ट पाकिस्तान ने कमिट की थी, और शायद मेरा कयास है, आई कैन जस्ट मेक अनएजुकेटेड गेस, वो हमारे ऊपर अब भी बाइंडिंग है.
So there are you mentioned Charter of Democracy. What was the role of this event in the Pakistan-Afghan policy? This history.
Charter of Democracy was a departure by Pakistan's People's Party and Benazir from the original Afghan policy made by her father, late Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Shaheed. She ultimately, after 96, she became a realist. It was probably because of the influence of outside actors, her close friends, maybe even her husband. I don't know about her husband, what role he played in that. But after she died, her husband was very active in everything. Even today, he is very active. So they carried out a shift. People's Party did not preserve the legacy of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto on Afghanistan.
Right. And right after that, the 18th Amendment comes. The 18th Amendment comes right after this Charter of Democracy when People's Party.
You see, 18th Amendment se pehle bhi, the minerals and resources were with the provinces. और 18th Amendment के बाद legislative control बहुत ज़्यादा provinces के पास चला गया, and financial control भी उनके पास चला गया. The federal government does not have enough funds to run the expenses of entire Pakistan. This is an issue between the provinces and the federal government all the time in Pakistan. अच्छा, ये एक इशू हुआ ना, इसने हर चीज को लूज कर दिया पाकिस्तान. And the reaction of the armed forces right now, trying to exercise a very tight control everything, actually, in part, it may be fueled with the fact that in many cases, the center is helpless with the provinces. और जो मादनियात थी, बड़ा नेगेटिव रोल प्ले किया है पीपल्स पार्टी ने सिंध में मादनियात. we have a huge block of lignite coal, world's second largest. But lignite coal's advantage over hard coal is that it's liquid and you need refineries on site. The consortium which came and bid for that block, जहाँ पे lignite coal है, they were not awarded that block, and the block was handed over to Fuji Foundation, who had not bid for it, and they can't do anything about it. कुछ Chinese company को ले आएंगे, कुछ कर लेंगे, but they don't have the technology rights. Technology of lignite coal is with the South Africans, Australians to some extent, and Americans. Lignite coal एक ऐसी नेमत है कि उसमें से हर चीज निकलती है, पानी भी है, पेट्रोल है, डीजल है, गैस है, ब्रिकेट्स हैं, प्लास्टिक्स हैं, पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, ये जो पेट्रोलियम जेलीज, मेकअप्स वगैरह में हर चीज में यूज होती है. इट्स अ वेरी बिग रिसोर्स. और जो एस्टिमेट किया था जियोलॉजिस्ट ने और एक्सपर्ट्स ने, थरपाक कंपनी थी which was being represented in Pakistan by Usman Aminuddin, वो कहते थे अगर सिर्फ पाकिस्तान इसको इस्तेमाल करे लिग्नाइट कोल के ब्लॉक को, it will last 200 years.
But nothing of this sort has ever been realized. We have heard stories of all sorts.
No, they didn't allow it to happen.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yani, Pakistan's wings have always been clipped from time to time for number of reasons. As you rightly mentioned, 1960, if Pakistan could perform well in the 1960s, then why not in the later decades? What happened? So what happened is the fundamental question here. Why are we here? So that's what we really need to understand. One more thing, because since you are with us right now, let me take this opportunity. Musharraf Saab, everybody blames him for dragging Pakistan for a second time into this Afghan conflict. Did he have a choice? Because you have worked very closely with all these people. Did he have a
There were so many choices. Afghanistan was ready to become something short of a confederation in 1996. They were willing. They were even willing after 9/11, when Mutawakkal, the foreign minister, came to Peshawar, stayed in University Town, and that is where the American ambassador met him there. Or we'll hand you over to Osama bin Laden, provided he's tried under the Qazi court. Because we have a say of handing him over, because we are the government of the day. And it should be in a Qazi court, and the Qazi court preferably. Turkey is part of NATO, let it be in Turkey. The Americans said, what is the guarantee that he will be punished? So that went over, and then shuru ho gaya. They went into Iraq. उधर सारी तबाही फेरी इन्होंने इराक में, उसके बाद फिर इधर आए और इनके लिस्टिंग पोस्ट वगैरह अफगानिस्तान में लगे हुए थे. ये तो उनके CIA के जो डायरेक्टर्स हैं, they have published books on this now, and everything is out in the open. I think there's something wrong.
Sorry, something happened with the camera on my side. Please continue. So that's where we are. I was listening to what you were saying when I was off screen. So this is how the situation. So let's jump to the present situation before we conclude.
Doha, I'll rush through.
Yes.
What is Doha 2? Doha 2, they're putting two warring factions two warring countries together because they want to settle the secret annexures of Doha 1.
Hmm.
They don't want China in. They don't want Pakistan strong. They want to contain Iraq from the direction of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Iran, sorry, from the direction of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And this is it.
So you think somebody is pitching Afghanistan against Pakistan? It's not through some.
There is a very strong probability that they are trying for a regime change in Afghanistan, a pro-American Taliban regime change.
Sorry, there is some trouble on my side for the internet. Yes.
Yeah.
So would you like to?
मैं ये समझता हूँ दोहा 2 का सबसे बड़ा ऑब्जेक्टिव is to have a regime change with pro-USA elements in Afghanistan, notwithstanding, let's say, hypothetically, Taliban faction which is pro-America, and then they want to take back Bagram Air Base.
So
And-
this is a China-specific.
they want China की हर लिहाज से from every angle access to the Arabian Sea and Persian Gulf. They want to stop. अगर ये
Be
कर
that
लें-
via Pakistan or be that via Afghanistan and Iran.
so
Because they were building an alternative route.
then China has to skirt around. उधर अजरबैजान बैठा है which is pro United States of America. तो चाइना किधर से यहाँ से निकलेगा? बर्मा और बांग्लादेश है बस इंडियन ओशन के अंदर. तो और इसमें अल्टीमेटली जो मुझे लगता है बिकॉज इंडियंस आल्सो वर्क इन स्फेयर्स ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंसेस ऑफ मंडाला और जो चाइनीज थिंकिंग है वो भी यही है. ये एशियन थिंकिंग थी ज़माने कदीम से. You know, they forged alliances mostly because of trade, not because of warfare. तो beneficiary इसका इंडिया होगा, and India will shake hands with China. Noted.
India will shake hands with China. You see.
हाँ, और इसलिए जो प्रेजेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट है दोहा 2 का, जो लड़ाई हो रही है बॉर्डर के ऊपर पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के दरमियान में, वो यही है. दोनों को लड़ाओ, इनसे नेगोशिएट करो कॉमन टेबल पे, सीक्रेट ओपन द सीक्रेट नेक्स्चर्स ऑफ दोहा 1, दोहा 2 के मजीद बनाओ and have a complete system which keeps China and Russia out of the area completely. और उसके
Because what
advantage-
you're saying about
Just-
China and India, it should really set everybody thinking in this country about what is happening and how we are being provoked to become,
exactly. You see, three things will
involved into something which we should have avoided, or we.
yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Three things will happen. China will be kept at bay, and they'll keep Pakistan and Afghanistan destabilized. ताकि ये तरक्की ना करें. मादनियात यहाँ पर बहुत है, पोटेंशियल बहुत है, and they will get Bagram base. तो ये 3 मेजर कंटूर्स हैं अमेरिकन स्ट्रैटेजी के, फॉरेन पॉलिसी के, डिफेंस पॉलिसीज के. और उसके लिए जो मुझे लग रहा है अफगानिस्तान में रिजीम चेंज some sort of a regime change or a rethinking amongst the Afghan Taliban may be in offing कि उन्हें फोर्स किया जाए कि वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज करके अमेरिका के साथ कोऑपरेशन कर ले और भाग
Okay, so that's the big game here. That's the big game.
और हमारा जहाँ तक पाकिस्तान का ताल्लुक है तो डॉलर 281 पे है तो 270 पे आ जाएगा या 290 पे चला जाएगा 300 क्रॉस कर जाएगा ये होता रहेगा हमारे साथ दिस इज व्हाट विल हैपन टू अस
All right, this is a very grim picture that you have painted. I'm sure that it's an eye opener for those who want to make any serious commentary on this matter, and that they should pay attention to what you are saying. This is open to analysis. If you have any about it,
I have over 200 columns in national and international publications on Afghanistan. And all that I have said today, except Doha 2, I have already written. It's in black and white. Google कर ले मेरे नाम के साथ अफगानिस्तान
आप शेयर कीजिए हमारे साथ सैमन साहब आप शेयर कीजिएगा वो साथ इस वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में हम उसके लिंक्स लगा देंगे
जी I had the advantage of General Nasirullah Babar sitting with me and telling me about events and me taking notes because I wanted to compile this history मुझे पता था एक दिन ये तारीख हमें अपने लोगों को और दुनिया को बतानी पड़ेगी तो I have all those notes with me. Colonel Amin Sultan, who was Pakistan's consul general in Afghanistan, उनको Colonel Imam कहते हैं. He was shot at by Hakeemullah Masood. He was a very close friend of mine. He was senior to me, but a very dear friend of mine. So when he went to Afghanistan, into the tribal areas where he was martyred by Hakeemullah, उससे पहले वो मुझे मिल के गया है he met and he used to brief me about Afghanistan and everything and मैंने उसे मना भी किया I said don't go Brigadier Mia Mahmood is very closely associated my memoirs and passion उनकी बड़ी मशहूर किताब है अभी पाकिस्तान में हर जगह बिक रही है उसे उन्होंने स्पेशली मेंशन किया मेरा नाम अपनी किताब में because हमने तो हिस्ट्री पाकिस्तान की प्रिजर्व कर ली है हम रहे ना रहे ठीक है ना पाकिस्तान की एक सच्चाई हमने लिख दी है जो मुस्तकबिल में मुहर्रक आएगा और न्यूट्रल हिस्ट्री लिखेगा he will find matter and substance in what we have been writing तो ये
Thank you so much for sharing with us because this is a very important I would rather say very revealing discussion we've had. I would urge my viewers to make a comment on what we have discussed today. And if you have any agreement, disagreement, whatever it is. But I would not want to disagree with Samson Saab, knowing his insight and his first-hand knowledge of all these things. But still, if you do let us know in a decent way so we can share it with Samson Saab and we can maybe take it up further in our next discussion. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing all these things with us. Very, very useful discussion, I must say. Thank you so much.
And in the usual Pakistan,